All right, welcome to another edition of Narrowgate Voice. I have my buddy Eric alongside, at least half the screen. We welcome your questions or comments. You can drop those in the box below. And if we don't answer them tonight, then we'll try to answer them in the future. So, I don't know where you got the new toy, but it sure is loud. All right, we got a lot of ground to cover tonight. I'm going to be reading once again from an old Bible. So I'm going to be reading from the Christian Workers Holy Bible, copyright 1905, the John C. Winston Company. So it's over 100 years old. And what version are you going to be looking at? Because we're going to need to do some comparison.
New Living Translation.
NLT, all right? Because there's a lot in here, and we're going to skip around and cover a lot of ground tonight because we're going to try to keep this. Well, let's just put it this way. We're not going to try to be the Apostle Paul and talk about this till past midnight when people are falling asleep or falling off window ledges to their death or anything like that. Yeah. So, Genesis 5. It says, this is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Now, here we go. Verse 2 says, male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam in the day that they were created. So what is that last verse there, verse 2? What does that say in the NLT? Because I know it's going to be worded a little differently than the Bible that was 100 and something years old.
So he created them male and female, and he blessed them and called them human.
Human. It says human. Now, some versions, like I believe it's the ESV, it says he called them man or male. But because it was Adam that had named Eve with her name. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. So we're not going to get into all this genealogy. Genealogy is fascinating. I do a lot of research on my own personal genealogy, but there's a lot of ground, a lot of years to cover here. We're not going to do all that, but I do find, some of it, like I guess the big standout in this chapter would be Methuselah. And you've heard people say, oh, he's as old as Methuselah. Well, he's not. He might look like it. But Methuselah, it says in verse 20, lived after he begat Lamech 782 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and then he died. They had Social Security back then. How long have you drawing, right? They'd be like, come on. But they didn't have that, of course, back then. So anyway, I find that fascinating, as do a lot of people. But so we'll move on to verse 6 because I did a little promo the other day that's been on the channel. It said we have a big flood coming, a flood of biblical proportions. So we do, and so we'll get into. By the way, the 100-year-old Bible's falling apart here. I'm trying to keep it together. All right, in chapter 6, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So this, again, the really old version of the Bible. What does yours say? It's worded a little differently. Nephilim probably is mentioned.
Starting in 1, I guess. Then the people began to multiply on the earth, and the daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw the beautiful women and took any they wanted as their wives.
And verse 3 says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that is also his flesh, Yet his days shall be 120 years. And it says, verse 4 says, there were giants in the earth in those days. And that's where you tie back into the sons of God. And there was also that when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, that they bore children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So what does yours say right there, maybe in verse 4?
In those days, and for some time after, giant Nephites lived on the earth, for whenever the sons of God had intercourse with the women, they gave birth to children who became the heroes and famous warriors of ancient time.
Okay, so I have heard it said, but people with a lot more education than myself, that is a reference to the fallen angels. When Jesus talked about at one point in his ministry, I saw Satan fall like lightning, and he's talking about from heaven. And it's also in Scripture that he took a third of the angels with him. So many believe that this reference, the sons of God, creation of God, were the ones that apparently there was a lot of freedom between humans and the Nephilim or Nephilites or whatever you call them. And so they started having children, and it turned out to be giants. And of course, that wasn't really necessarily the biggest part of the problem. It says in verse 5, and God saw that the wickedness of man were great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of the heart were only evil continually. So none were good, no, not one. And it says in verse 6, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. So you can grieve God. And repented, I think maybe might be a better word, regretted maybe. Or what does your Bible say? What word does it use?
So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And put them on earth. It broke his heart.
Yeah. So how did we get here? Verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. So it was Noah that was righteous in God's eyes, that he had communication with. Because I mean, we go back into some of those other verses that we read. You know, there are different people that said that they walked with God. And so here's Noah that's got a personal relationship with God. And not everyone is going to die because of Noah. And it says that Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It talks about the earth being corrupt and all kinds of sin, and some of which you get into all that, and it's like you think, well, today seems to be as bad as then, but I don't think it really is. I mean, we got a lot of the same sin and a lot of the same problem, but here's the difference. There was one man. It didn't say that his sons found favor in the eyes of the Lord, or that his wife was outstanding minister of God. Said that Noah. So some benefited by that relationship with Noah. That's just my 2 cents, my opinion. I don't know what you think about that. But that's, I mean, it appears that it was Noah that had found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 17, and behold, I do bring floods of waters upon the earth and destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. So that's everybody except Noah and his wife and his 3 boys and their 3 daughters. Not daughters, I'm sorry, they're 3 wives.
3 wives.
That'd be Noah's daughters-in-law, I guess is what I was thinking. So everybody else is going to die. All the old people, they're going to die. They're going to be swept away to judgment when the floods come in, they're going to be swept away. It's going to be the middle-aged people. It's going to be the babies. It's everybody and their families are going to die when this flood. And at that point, they didn't even know what rain was, right? Because the ground had been watered and moistened from underneath. And so this whole big flood thing seemed a bit skeptical. I think that's the word I want to use. People were kind of skeptical in that day that anything like this could happen. This God you're talking about, surely he's a good God, right? Isn't he a good God? Why would he destroy the earth? Why would he destroy all of us that don't even know him? You know what I'm saying? People ask that same question now. What do you mean God's going to come back? And wish it was on fire already, he said. Well, anyway, chapter 4. And the Lord said unto Noah, come thou and all thy house unto the ark, for there I have seen righteousness before me in this generation of every clean beast. Anyway, he tells the numbers, and in the cute like wallpaper and Sunday school design, there's this big walk board up to the gigantic ark, and two of everything going on the ark. Well, that's not necessary. It's not true at all for everything. So you have to like read Genesis, and again, we're not going to broadcast all night long. So read some of that yourself. But it came to pass. This is verse 10. It came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month. The same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and it rained upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights without ceasing. You know, all the animals are on there. Noah and his family are on there, and everyone else is being swept away. The evil is being swept away, and the elect here are being saved. Have you been up to Kentucky to see the Ark replica?
No, I have not.
It's up there. Is that Williamsburg? I can't think it's not a commercial for them guys, but it's pretty amazing. The thing's huge, and if you have a chance to go through it, it's like, oh, that's how they probably did it. Because you know, you have these questions about how do you feed all these things, and how do you dispose of the waste? How do you know, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do here? And it's a pretty good exhibit. Very very cool. Verse 14, they and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went into Noah into the ark, 2 by 2, of all flesh, wherein they had the breath of life. That was verse 17. And God promised Noah, this is going to start off chapter 8, and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And God made a wind pass over the earth, and the waters I don't even know if I can. What is that word? What is yours saying? Read verse 8:1. Chapter 8, verse 1. Yeah, chapter 8, verse 1.
But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock with him in the boat. He sent a wind to blow across the earth, and the flood waters began to recede.
I think mine says a swaggered or something like that. I'm not really sure. Again, we're not have it used, and apparently a lot of other people in the past 100 years. So anyway, so the fountains of the deep, the windows of heaven, all that were stopped, and so it quit raining, and then the ground dried up. So, what kind of sight do you think that was? I mean, all these corpses, like floating, bloated corpses before the water
I think that's the reason why
Succeeded,
he
succeeded.
sent the wind to send them away, and I don't know, man. That's
Maybe they were swept away, right? Maybe they were pushed to the bottom of the deep, of the ocean or whatever. I mean, water finds its own level, and so maybe that's it. It's all speculation.
hmm
The ark, verse 4 in that chapter, and the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountain Ararat. The waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. So it took a long time for all that water to disperse and go back to where it was supposed to.
Well, you think about Denver's mile high. How much water would it cover to get to the top of the mile high?
And that doesn't even count the largest peaks of the world, right? I mean, wow. And let's see. In verse 15, and God spoke to Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. In other words, empty the ark, right? I mean, basically, and Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, and every beast exited. And Noah builded, it says, an ark, an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Now, I know the animals can't speak, but if this was they got to be like, I was just on a boat for the better part of a year, and now you're going to kill me? But they reproduced while they were on there, right? I mean, and there was more than just two. But that's what you've got here. I'm like all this time, and now I'm getting slaughtered. Just great, just my luck, Anyway, I think that's an interesting part there in Genesis chapter 8. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground anymore for any man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living, rather, as I have done. That's verse 21. And so here God's talking about everything's evil anyway from their youth. I mean, from the time, a lot of people don't comprehend that, but from the time a little child can start speaking, they start lying. I mean, did you do that? Nope. Did you poop your pants? No. I can smell you from across the room. Yeah, there we go. That come in handy, all right? I can smell you. So that's just what happens, right? Yeah, exactly. It starts out from infanthood, if you will, and so there are none that are good. No, not one. While the earth remained seed time and harvest and cold and heat and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Those words of God there, wrapping up 22. In verse 9, or chapter 9 rather, and God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon the beast of the earth, and upon fowl of the air, and upon that moveth upon the earth. And that's true, because I can't get a deer to walk up to me to save my life. They are, for whatever reason, when they see me, they'll take off, or if they smell me or anything like that. So apparently that's absolutely true. And then everything moving and it liveth shall be meant for you, even as the green herb have I given you all these things. So he's telling them they're going to be plentiful, to multiply, repopulate the earth. I'm going to try to skip down here for just a minute. I guess yours is somewhere along the same.
Yeah, I really like verse 3. I have given them to you for food, my version says. just as I've given you grain and vegetables. You know, the whole me too, me whatever woke generation.
Yeah.
It's plain black and white, you know. Anyway, I can get on the soapbox and stand here for 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, but
I've tried to bait you into that before, and you're like, nope, 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 nope. So you're a little feisty tonight. And the bow. Okay, let's go back up. And I will remember. This is verse 15. My covenant, which is between me and you, and every living creature, and all flesh, and the waters shall no more become, or no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the clouds, and I will look upon it, and I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. That's a look of shock. Oh, that's what the rainbow's for. It's in God's word. Genesis chapter 9. It's as clear as day. Wow. Anyway.
So how many times did it reference in these 4 chapters we've covered so far, a man and woman go forth and be fruitful?
Yes, good point. That's what it says.
Didn't say Adam and Steve go forth.
It didn't say Adam and your boys. It didn't say, or any of that other stuff, right? Exactly.
It took one of each species, each male and female. How many? I've seen that go through just about every other verse. Male and female, male and female, but yet the woke world is we want to change it to the me now.
Change it to something else. In verse 20, and Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. I'm going somewhere with this. Yeah, I'm going to pick out the controversial stuff, right? So, look, I've been on a boat for a year. I'm ready to plant some grapes. Oh, look, let's make some wine and get drunk. And, all right, the next verse, because it gets stranger than that. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren, with stout. Read yours, because let's hear something a little more modern. Verse 22.
Ham, the father of Canaan, saw that his father was naked and went outside and told his brothers. Then Shem and Japheth took a robe, held it over their shoulders, and backed into the tent to cover their father. As they did this, they looked the other way so they would not see him naked.
Okay, so I'm going to share this, and I cannot give you the source because it's been way too many years since I heard this rabbi on this show discussing this chapter. And of course, this is this is Genesis. They look at Genesis and they look at it maybe different in certain parts. But he said, now who was it? Was it Japheth? Which son was it that went into the tent? The one that went into the tent. Shem? No, Shem and Japheth. It was Ham that went into the tent.
Ham went in first, yes.
Now, the rabbi said this. All right, hold on to your socks. The rabbi said, what really is going on here is that Ham did not want to split the earth and the fullness thereof 4 ways. And so what he actually did was he went into the tent and castrated his dad to keep him from producing any more children. Mm-hmm. And the other two, I don't know nothing about any of that, but I heard a rabbi say that on television one time, and I don't understand Hebrew at that level at all, but what it says here in this Bible, again, over 100 years old, is that, I don't know, maybe he was mocking or he saw him naked and it was a shame for them to see it, their father that way. And so the other two walked backwards, covered him up, and preserved his dignity. Right. But I don't know. Do you think you could have possibly been castrated? That thing? I mean,
I don't see any evidence of that.
Okay, verse 24. And Noah awoke from his wine, not from his sleep, but he got sober and knew what his younger son had done unto him. How would he know what he had done to him unless there was some kind of physical evidence? I don't know. Again, I'm not saying it did. I'm just saying what I had heard. And he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall be to his brethren." Now, he didn't say, again, it wasn't Canaan. Canaan was the son of him. He didn't say the son who had came in there. He mentioned his grandson, like the offspring, the firstborn male offspring of him. I don't know. There's something weird going on there that I don't fully understand, but all I can say is a big maybe. And so then he prays. He said, "And blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be a servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be a servant." And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. 950 years old.
No, thank you.
I don't know how you save for that kind of retirement. I mean, you retire at 70, and you got another 880 years to go. You better invest in some of those Dave Ramsey aggressive growth mutual funds if you're going to make it. If you're going to make it that long, oh my goodness! All right. Well, I don't. I do not have a tweet of the month or of the week or whatever that I did last time, and nor do I have anything else to share other than this because there were so many chapters, and I know we skipped over a lot, but but we tried to hit the highlights or the odd lights anyway of Genesis chapters 5 through 9. You got anything else that you'd like to share?
The only thing I could think about, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, was, the flood. Can we put that in today's terminology?
Well, okay, so Jesus did. A lot of people miss that. Jesus talked about the flood, right? And then Jesus says that there's going to come a day. Remember what I told you happened to all the evil people, right? They were all swept away to judgment because they were swept away by the water. Jesus says there's going to be two working in the field. One's going to be left and one's going to be swept away. The two women grinding, one left and one swept away. Yeah. Oh! We have a comment. Karen has chimed in. She said she is listening, and hey, Eric, hope you are doing good.
Hey, I hope you guys both are doing good, and so sorry and condolences.
Thank you
me
very
and my
much.
family both been praying for you guys, and
hey, it's put us way behind on doing this, but hopefully we can get more in a rhythm and can do a show more than once a month at some point. But Lord knows there are lots of trials. The computer doesn't want to work, or that light don't want to work, or the mic don't want to work, or the camera don't want to work, or it's always something. Or like right now, where's the outro?
One last thing.
Go ahead and share.
Today's flood. Could it be COVID?
Yeah. Oh well, now we're not ready for the Book of Revelation just yet. But I believe that the whole thing is I believe it is a real flood because some of the documentaries I've seen over the years that different cultures around the world all talk about this flood of biblical proportions that happened in ancient times. And so it's this, at that time, everything was oral tradition. Everything was handed down. The stories were handed down over and over. And so to the ends of the earth, this story was told. So I believe it's true. And I believe that when Jesus talks about in that day, and he talks about being swept away, I think he's making reference to the flood and that people are going to be swept away to judgment. I don't know. And I'm not going to say that word you said earlier because I don't want to get banned. But, you know, you get into Revelation, there's certain bowls, there's certain judgments that are poured out on the earth. And
Right.
are we there yet? That's a whole different question. I'm not. Who knows? Who knows for sure? Anyway, that's what that's all I've got. Anything else? You guys skirt your question enough? Can you give us another rim shot? Can you give us another rim shot before we go? All right.